Another escalation of violence in the Middle East. Israel and the Iranian-backed militant group Hezbollah have
Israel is bracing for a potential attack from Iran and its proxies.
My name is Gazelle Sharmad, and I was born in Iran, raised in Germany, and living in America for the last 2 decades.
My name is Nourirl, and my family are from Iran.
My name is Bijan Kian. I was born in Tehran on what used to be called the Palace Street in the 50s, and life was good.
Noushin Meshkati, originally from Iran. The days that I was in Iran, I was a free student with friends. Didn't matter what religion, the color of skin, anything.
There was a really progressive movement going on, a lot of reforms, rapid modernization, a women's movement.
Iranian women gaining more and more power and freedom, having jobs, going to school, continuing their education, and there was no limitation for them.
Gay rights weren't a thing yet, but there wasn't like systemic persecution of gay people, so there was a lot more leniency in that regard.
We were hoping to have a great future for many decades ahead of us, not knowing what's waiting.
Rouzbeh Farahanipur. Originally, I'm from Iran. I'm born in Tehran. The time of revolution, I was 7. But I remember my mom enrolled me at the Catholic school. I went to the Catholic school for the first 3 years. After revolution, the IRGC attacked my school. They arrest the priest, even execute a couple of the priests at the school. And that was one of my first interaction with the regime.
The crowd shouted death to the Shah. Among the despised symbols of their monarch, the marchers raised pictures of the Shah's antagonist, the bearded, fierce-eyed holy man, Ayatollah Khomeini.
The regime came into power in 1979. There was a coup. They like to call it an Islamic revolution. It's not a revolution. The Islamists seized the power of the country and started executing and murdering anybody else. Anybody who was not a jihadist was murdered and is still being murdered. And since then, we have a dictatorship going on inside of Iran.
This is an Islamic government that believes that people in general are not allowed to think for themselves.
So when the Islamic Republic regime came into power, they instilled a very, very strict version of Sharia law. Women in Iran, their lives are worth 50% that of a man. The morality police are patrolling the streets of every city to ensure that people adhere to the morality codes, and specifically that women adhere to the dress code, which is you have to be completely covered.
My name is Alham Yaghoubian, and I was born and raised in Tehran, Iran. I remember when I was growing up, seeing and witnessing people beating up in the streets. I remember when I was several times arrested, walking in the streets with my brother, thinking that he was my boyfriend, or maybe because I had a little bit makeup or showing up a little bit of my hair.
I worked with my friends to establish the political organization illegally to fight for freedom, democracy, secular republic. I lost more than 20 members of my family and friends. They got assassinated or they got executed in the system. I was 3 times in the regime's jail. The torture over there was very bad, and they broke my neck, they broke my feet. They released me on the bail after almost 2 months. And before I come back to the court for my trial, on all of the newspapers saw my name on execution list. That was the last day I was in Iran.
It's essentially illegal to be gay in Iran. People that have openly fought for LGBTQ+ equality in Iran have been immediately detained, arrested, and it is estimated that 4,000 to 6,000 gay people have been executed by the regime since they came into power in 1979.
Life right now under the Islamic regime is terrifying. There is no life. This is a totalitarian regime that dictates every part of your life, what you're dressing, where you're going, what you can say, what you cannot say, how you're supposed to think, and even if you're allowed to live or not, because we have the biggest execution wave going on in Iran. So they determine if you're even allowed to live in Iran.
I have been an activist since I was a teenager, from the first day that they took power. Islamic Republic is very smart. They know how to manipulate people's mind.
One of the biggest strategies that the Islamic regime uses and that all of the jihadists use is propaganda. They try to look like the victims. They try to look like the people who are wrong, who just want rights, who just want to live, who are being crushed by sanctions, who are being crushed by Islamophobia and all of those things, even though we know the regime is the one that is killing the people, that is poisoning schoolgirls, that is shooting at people and mass raping them.
این حادثه‌ای که پیش آمد دختر جوانی بنده به صراحت میگم این برنامه‌ریزی کار آمریکا، کار رژیم غاصب و جعلی صهیونیستی و دنبال روای اونها.
Our media is providing the grounds for them to be able to spread the message that they want to spread.
They have a section on the intelligence services hacking the other websites or governments to hide the items and messages or news the regime don't want anybody to see. At the same time, they are distributing lots of the fake news through the social media.
They're creating a false narrative to manipulate our people in the West to root for them. That is actually genius, and it works over and over again. We can see it right now after October 7th, what has happened.
October 7th, that was a horrific event for any human being. I don't know how they can support the horrifying and barbaric act of the Hamas.
A group of protesters that lit flares and chanted anti-Israel messages outside an exhibit that commemorates the victims of the October 7 massacre.
It was exhilarating. It was exhilarating. It was energizing.
October 7th was financed by the Islamic Republic.
Hania confirmed in 2022 about $70 to $100 million annually was sent to Hamas by Islamic Republic of Iran.
Islamic Republic produces subgroups that can penetrate and become militarized to be able to spread the fear that they need to spread in the region.
Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in Gaza, Houthis in Yemen.
These are all arms of the Islamic Republic regime occupying Iran. And their whole goal is to wreak havoc, sow chaos, and destroy Israel without getting their own hands dirty.
The strategy has been not to leave a trace, use proxies in every aspect to be able to conduct their dastardly deeds.
After October 7th happened, many of these Iranians courageously, without fear, condemned Hamas and were out to show their support for Israel. And that is very exciting to see. Despite all these propaganda, the regime's strategy fails.
The Israeli-Palestine conflict are a good example of symbolizing freedom and theocracy. You have Palestine, which is under the control of Islamic Republic, funded by terrorist groups. And they have Israel, who is the only democracy in the region. The conflict is not people. The conflict is the power of terror against innocence.
If you look at their own constitution as well, war against Israel is one of the fundamental part of the establishment of the Islamic Republic. They cannot recognize Israel. They cannot be friends with Israel. And they have to make sure supporting all militia and groups against Israel to get closer to their own goal.
They want to be the big boss of not only the Middle East and North Africa, but of Europe and of the US and essentially of the world. But they can't take on all of that until they take out what's within their own backyard. And what's in their own backyard right now is Israel.
Unfortunately, many Americans have no knowledge about Israel. about Middle East.
The poverty of information in the United States, in many, many different circles, is unbelievable.
University students demonstrating in Tehran, shouting death to the Shah, pledge allegiance to the Islamic movement of the Ayatollahs.
Khomeini used the left. He partnered with the communist groups, leftist groups, and they helped usher him in to power.
We are the supporters of any oppressed people. Anyone, anywhere who is oppressed, we will have sympathy with them.
With this odd marriage or this unholy marriage of Islamism and Marxism, our academic system has been replaced by jihadist teachers, by jihadist professors.
Hamas has challenged the monopoly of violence.
I don't pledge allegiance to no American flag, let alone to no constitution.
So these people are being fed information, they're taking it at face value, and they're now pouring into the streets what I believe many of them think is out of virtue, or they believe that they are on the right side of history.
What they think they're supporting is freedom fighters or resistance and anti-oppression, because those are the slogans that they hear in their schools and in media and everywhere else. Resistance has nothing to do with raping people, with taking people hostage, with wanting to murder people, with hate, with anti-Semitism. That's not resisting anybody. This is oppression. And what we're seeing right now on our campuses are not grassroots movement that are coming out because they genuinely care about a humanitarian cause. They're orchestrated from a certain place.
The United States government admitted that the Islamic Republic paid individuals to protest here in the United States.
The supreme leader of the Islamic regime has supported these encampments, have said they're heroes. And so when the leader of the Islamic regime, a terrorist regime, is telling you, I'm supporting you, you're probably on the wrong side of history there.
Americans should think about Middle East because it started in Middle East, but it's not going to end in the Middle East.
They never had the intention of stopping their revolution at Iran. From the start, the Ayatollah Khomeini had this grand plan of what he called exporting the revolution.
Iran was just their first project to take over Iran, but they're coming for the rest of the Middle East, and after Middle East, it's going to be Europe and America, and then a global caliphate.
اگر میگیم قدس یعنی نجات دادن جهان از استکبار جهان. یعنی شیشه عمر وقتی زده بشه باید اروپا و آمریکا و مردم جهان از این نظام سلطه نجات پیدا کنن.
إسرائيل هي عبارة عن أداة تنفيذية. المعركة الأساسية والحقيقية هي مع أمريكا.
It's a matter of how much our civilized world allow them to spread, because if it's up to them, they want to take over the world.
You can look at Europe and see what's happening in Europe. How many mosques and centers were closed by the government of Germany because they found out they were supported by the terrorist organizations and by Islamic Republic of Iran.
I lost a couple of my friends in Europe. They got assassinated by the regime. My restaurant door got shot. My restaurant got vandalized. I feel like I'm not really safe here.
My father is an activist. He worked here in Los Angeles. He had a radio station, and he was bringing out what really was happening inside of Iran. They terrorized them. They sent assassins to Los Angeles to murder my father in 2009. And when they couldn't assassinate him, they kidnapped my father in 2020, and they want $2.5 billion. Otherwise, they're going to execute my father.
It's not an idea. This is realism. And if we don't stop that, if we let them, they can get it. It's not only the dream.
The Iranian voice is so important in this conversation because the majority of Iranians within Iran do not want the Islamic Republic regime ruling over them.
We came from that region. We experienced Islamist ideology.
The people of Iran are doing resistance and being freedom fighters. They have never held anybody hostage. They have never targeted civilians. I hope you find that out before our countries turn into an Islamic regime.
This is the voice of the Iranians that have experienced both sides, hoping to bring awareness to avoid the fall.